Hello, and welcome to a crash course in the mineral revolution. Please be aware that you cannot just use this video to prepare for your tests or final examinations. Only some of the information that you have done throughout the year has been included in this video. It's time to refresh those brains. Britain became powerful and wealthy as a result of the Industrial Revolution and was determined to build up an empire in other parts of the world, including Southern Africa. The Cape became a British colony in 1806, and the main export was wool, which was made into cloth in factories in Britain. Natal became a British colony in 1843. Here they grew crops such as cotton, coffee, and tobacco for export. They started to grow sugar in the 1850s. The Orange Free State and the Transvaal were known as the Boer Republics. This is where the Dutch-speaking people lived. Let's take a look at the map provided on the slide. You can see the Transvaal and the Orange Free State that has been colored in orange. That is where the Dutch-speaking people were staying. The other sections that are more a mustard color, those were colonized by Britain. Before any minerals were found in South Africa in the late 19th century, South Africa was considered a poor country and was used mainly as a trade route to get to the east. Britain had already colonized large sections of the South African coast in order to protect her trade routes. Now remember, they traded by sailing in large ships, and so she would want to protect the coast of Africa to make sure that her ships would be safe. Up to the 1860s, the economy of South Africa was based on agriculture, which is farming, and trade. South Africa and some neighboring countries had been divided up as British colonies, but you can see that there was also a colony owned by Germany, which later becomes known as Namibia.
South Africa is very famous worldwide for its diamond and the diamond origin. In 1867, the first diamond was discovered in South Africa, in the Kimberley region, by a young shepherd by the name of Erasmus. The first diamond was discovered. It was later polished to over a 10-carat yellowish diamond. In 1867, the discovery made all its way to Europe, to London at the time, and that actually created a lot of opportunities and business people to come to Kimberley. So the diamond rush has begun worldwide. And in fact, that actually created a lot of people coming from around the world in order to buy the diamond, to trade in the diamond. And South African diamond became world famous for the size, for the quality, and for the beauty. We're sitting now about 150 years later. We're still buying diamond from the same region, from Kimberley. And we continue the tradition, and South Africa still produce, beautiful diamonds. And worldwide, the South African diamonds are known for the quality. And if you look at many of the international jewelry houses and diamond companies, they are still getting a lot of the source coming from South Africa. There are other sources now that came around the world for diamonds, but I think people always remember that origin and the speciality of the South African diamonds.
So the finding of diamonds changed everything. South Africa was no longer seen as a poor country. Britain now had an invested interest in South Africa and wanted to control the diamond industry. Thousands of people rushed to the diamond area in the hope of finding work or to strike it lucky. Many skilled workers came from all over the world, including Britain, Australia, and America, to join in the mining revolution of South Africa. The majority of unskilled laborers were from South Africa. The British officials wanted to keep control, and so they created what was known as closed compounds to control the local unskilled laborers.
Diamonds truly are one of Mother Earth's simplest yet most complex forms of natural beauty, comprised of just one element, carbon. Diamonds are considered to be the hardest substance on Earth and derive their name from the Greek word adamas, which means unconquerable. Natural diamonds formed over billions of years ago, in some cases over more than 3 billion years. And joining us to educate us on all things diamond are representatives from Lucara Diamond Corp, William Lamb and Ira Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This is such a fascinating and such a fun topic. I mean, let's face it, we're talking about diamonds. This is spectacular. Let's first talk about just the basics, how diamonds are formed. Some folks at home might not know how this actually happens.
Sure. Well, first off, diamonds are incredibly rare. They are the purest form of transparent carbon, and they form under tremendous pressure and depth, typically about 150 kilometers below the Earth's surface. They are then transported to the surface of the Earth in volcanoes, and they're very special volcanoes that we refer to as kimberlites. And those are the deposits then that we search for, and it can typically take up to 10 years of searching before you find a kimberlite deposit, and thereafter it can be another 10 years before you actually determine whether or not it contains enough diamonds to be economic.
It's crazy to think about all that goes into forming a diamond. And I would imagine if you're mining these gems, these stones, when you find one, it must feel incredible. Talk to me about that.
Well, Beth, can you imagine what you feel if your phone rings at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Right, you're scared.
Exactly. Generally, it's bad. And when I was chatting to our CEO after we recovered the Lesedi, his words to me were, "Are you sitting down?" And of course, you then know that it's bad news. And what followed was, congratulations. We're the first company in more than 100 years to recover a diamond over 1,000 carats. And 1,000 carats is significant. And there's the sense of euphoria, but no real words to explain sort of how you actually feel. It is quite a momentous occasion in, I think, anybody who works in the diamond industry in their career.
I would imagine your heart just beats a little bit faster. We actually have that diamond. Olga's going to show us that in just a few minutes, which we're super excited about. But let's talk about the process. It's a journey, quite a journey, from finding the diamond, from mining it, to what we see when we think of diamonds in our jewelry stores.
Correct. Diamonds are incredibly rare, and they're very difficult to find. And it can take decades to actually make a discovery that will go on to become a commercially producing diamond mine. So the process is very involved. We as geologists spend a great deal of time identifying areas to go and explore. And then if we are lucky enough to make a discovery from drilling, it then is a whole second process where we actually then have to go on to understand the overall grade of these deposits in carats per ton. And then we have to understand the diamond value.
And one of the things that I find incredibly fascinating with Lucara, you're not just about the corporate bottom line when it comes to diamonds. There's so much more about ethically mining diamonds and then affecting the entire community as well.
Well, and that's a very good point, though. And our mine is in Botswana. And I think it's very important for everybody to understand that they are not our diamonds. Those are Botswana's diamonds. We're there just as a facilitator to extract the value, provide our experience to be able to add value back into the country. And if you look at Botswana, there's it's most probably the perfect model where mining has actually made an enormous difference to the overall economic situation within the country. But on a micro level, the impact that we have within the local communities in which we operate, it's vitally important for us to make sure that there are sustainable skills left when we leave. And we have a grant program where we call it KEEF, the Karowe Emerging Entrepreneurs Fund, where we have grants which are being provided to sort of very business-orientated people. And it's through that process we can actually then encourage additional businesses outside of the mining, which will be there long after we're gone.
You both are just a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Remember how the diamonds were first found in an area called No Man's Land? Well, that land actually did have a name. It was called Griqualand West. As the news of the diamonds spread, many people, commonly called diggers, flocked to the river banks in search of diamonds. Between 1870 and 1871, large amounts of diamonds were found in the dry areas away from the rivers on Boer farms. The area where the diamonds were found was occupied by many different groups at the time. Tswana-speaking groups occupied the land west of the Vaal River. The Boers lived in the Transvaal and Orange Free State. The Cape Colony was controlled by the British, and the Griqua people settled to the north of the rivers. So when diamonds were discovered, naturally there were arguments about who owned the land and had the rights to the diamonds. The diamonds were located partly on Griqua land and partly on Boer land. In 1871, the Griqua were awarded the diamond fields in a legal case. This meant that the ownership of the fields was officially declared theirs. The Boers were not happy about this, and so the Griqua turned to the British for protection. And so this area became a British colony, and then in 1880, it became a part of the Cape Colony. A little information about the city of Kimberley. Kimberley is a city that was the diamond mining center and is the capital of the Northern Cape Province in South Africa. It lies near the Free State Province border. Founded after the discovery of diamonds on farms in the area from 1869 to 1871, the mining camp of Kimberley grew as a result of the intensive digging of the diamond-bearing pipe at the hill called Colesberg Kopje. The town of Kimberley was created in 1878 and incorporated into the Cape Colony in 1880. In 1885, the Cape Town Railway reached Kimberley. After 1888, the Kimberley mine at Colesberg Kopje and most other mines in the area were controlled by a trust organized by Cecil Rhodes, with production placed in the hands of De Beers Consolidated Mines. Kimberley Mine, now called the Big Hole, is 1.5 kilometers in circumference and was the richest diamond-producing mine in the world. It was closed in 1914 at the start of World War I. Let's do a quick recap of two prominent people with regards to diamond mining and the formation of De Beers, that being Cecil John Rhodes and Barney Barnato.
Cecil John Rhodes was an English-born politician and businessman who lived during the 19th century. He was born on July 5, 1853 in Bishop Stortford in England. When he was still very young, he moved to the British colony of South Africa on the edge of the British Empire. At the time, South Africa was an economically underdeveloped region that was rich in precious natural resources. There was a rapidly growing market for South Africa's resources, and Rhodes went to live near the city of Kimberley, investing in the search for diamonds. It turned out to be a wise choice. Soon Rhodes amassed a remarkable fortune. By the time he was 20, he was already a successful man. Starting in 1873, he began dividing his time between studying at the University of Oxford and his business pursuits in Africa. He graduated from the university in 1881 and entered the Parliament of Cape Colony, an area in Africa's southernmost tip. Rhodes enacted an aggressive pro-business economic policy, acquiring several mining companies. In 1888, he founded De Beers Consolidated Mines, a giant in the mining business. His wealth gave him increasing influence. In 1890, he was nominated Prime Minister of the Cape Colony. A passionate supporter of English imperialist policy, Rhodes governed with the sole aim of favouring British interests. In 1894, he issued the Glenn Gray Act, which allowed English companies to expropriate land from native Africans in order to search for mineral deposits. The same year, Rhodes enlarged the British Empire's possessions, annexing territories that correspond with today's Zimbabwe and Zambia, which would later be renamed Rhodesia in his honor. He also tried to recapture the Republic of Transvaal, a territory rich in gold that had won its independence from Great Britain following a war fought a decade earlier between the English and the Boers, descendants of the first Dutch colonists. But the president of Transvaal, Paul Kruger, put a stop to Rhodes' ambitions. In an attempt to overturn Kruger's government, Rhodes supported an insurrection in 1895, the so-called Jameson Raid, named after Leander Starr Jameson, leader of the revolt. The attempt failed and Rhodes was forced to resign as Prime Minister. His loss of political power did not affect his economic might. By the end of the 19th century, De Beers Consolidated Mines controlled 90% of the world's diamond market. Beginning in 1899, Rhodes participated in the Second English-Boer War, though he did not live to see its conclusion. Cecil Rhodes died in Cape Town, South Africa, on March 27, 1902, a few months before the English won the war. He was 48.
Barnet Isaacs, better known as Barney Bonato, was born in London's East End in 1852, the grandson of a rabbi and the son of a shop owner. Barney grew up a street-smart kid with an uncanny ability to always make a profit. From the age of 15, he never found himself without a pound in his pocket. A bawdy music hall performer and magician by night, and a promising boxer by day, Barney could also gamble with the best of them. Soon after arriving in Kimberley in 1873, Barney became a peddler trading goods. Then a diamond dealer. Then a small syndicate holder. Then he took over control of Kimberley Central Mining Company. The diamond industry expanded at a very rapid rate. In 1885, the race was on for control of the mines. It became a fight to the finish between Bonato and Rhodes. When the bell rang, Rhodes won. The winner and undisputed champion, Cecil Rhodes. While Barney sold out to Cecil Rhodes, Barney remained the largest shareholder in De Beers. At the height of his success, Barney moved on to Johannesburg. Another new development, the gold industry. Success. The Bonatos became very successful. Waterworks, Stock Exchange, JCI, and owned more property than anyone in Johannesburg. What happened? At the age of 46, Barney was lost at sea. Scores of people lined the route to the London cemetery for one last glimpse of the battling Bonato. Barney had been a member of the Cape Parliament, and the day he was buried, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and Parliament closed. With a bit of luck, savvy and plain old hard work, Barney created a fortune and a legend in South Africa that survives till this day.
De Beers SA is a South African company that is the world's largest producer and distributor of diamonds. Through its many subsidiaries and brands, De Beers participates in most facets of the diamond industry, including mining, trading, and retail. Retail means the selling of. In the early 21st century, the company marked 40% of the global supply of diamonds. This means that De Beers owned 40% of the diamonds around the world. Diamonds were first discovered in southern Africa in the mid-1860s on the farm of Nicholas and Diederik de Beer, near what is now the city of Kimberley. I suppose that's probably where they got the name De Beer from. The two diamond mines dug on the farm, the Kimberley and the De Beers, were at one time the world's most productive mines, but they are no longer in operation today. In 1871, the English entrepreneur Cecil John Rhodes bought a claim to the De Beers mine, and with this as a financial base, eventually bought up most of the diamond mines in southern Africa. In 1888, he and Barney Bonato formed De Beers Consolidated Mines.
It's a jewel thief's dream. So much so that you simply push millions worth out of the way without hesitation and sweep in the next bunch. Small diamonds, big diamonds, clear diamonds, and dark ones. Welcome to the DTC, the Diamond Trading Company. This is the Rough Diamond Distribution Center for De Beers. This is the middle step in between the mines and the cutters. What we're doing here is sorting the stones. There are almost 12,000 categories. The most important things, though, are the 4 C's: cut, color, clarity, and of course, carat. Think of DTC as a bridge. All the stones that De Beers mines, not just in Botswana, come through here. They're mixed and sorted before being sold. Most sales are to pre-selected customers, called site holders. It's an elite club of less than 100 jewelers, and entry is by invite only. Upset De Beers one year, and you might not be back next. We visited one site holder to find out what happens to the rough diamonds.
Basically, we'll take the parcel. This stone is a 8.193 carat. We'll scan the stone in this machine.
Okay.
Planner, what he'll do, he will try and maximize the profit out of each and every stone. We'll see the outskirt is the rough diamond, and we'll try and plot, in this case, 2 round diamonds.
Wow, so basically the computer picks the most efficient way
Exactly.
to maximize the most different diamonds.
Exactly. Once we decide that this is the best way we want to produce that stone, the machine will mark a laser line in the middle, this yellow line.
But you totally trust the computer program to come up with the most profitable equation.
Yes, but obviously we have our guys which will determine what is the best way. It's not only what the machine will decide, they will know the market price.
Next, the stones are cut by lasers, rounded off, then sent for polishing.
Would you like to polish?
Sure.
Okay. You can put it gently here. You can hold it.
Okay.
Hold it here. And put it gently against the pole.
Whoa.
And slowly, slowly drop it until it touches. Slowly, slowly.
I feel like I'm burning
And you can
your
leave
money.
it there. And when you finish, you check what you did with the loop.
Not bad. I have to say not bad at all.
You've done well.
Thank you. Olivia Stearns Bloomberg, Gaborone, Botswana.
Gold is a soft, heavy, shiny metal. It has been used for many thousands of years by people all over the world for jewelry, decoration, and as money. Gold is important because it is rare, but also easier to use than other rare metals. It is also used to repair teeth and is found in electronic equipment such as computers. The color of this metal is also called gold. Mining methods for gold are similar to other metals. Gold is so valued that the discovery of a new place to mine has sometimes caused a gold rush. Often, gold is found as a native element. This means it is not part of an ore and does not need extracting. Most of the gold on Earth is deep inside the Earth's core because it is dense. Nearly all discovered gold was deposited on the surface by meteorites.
In nature, gold can be found in the form of crystals or nuggets, both big and small. Gold is the king of precious metals. With its unique color and shine, it has been fascinating people since the dawn of time. Many myths and legends claim that it has supernatural origins. In ancient times, the Aztec, who controlled a huge empire in what is now Mexico, believed that gold was the sun's sweat. In ancient Egypt, where the pharaohs ruled, it was thought to be the flesh of the gods. Some civilizations think it's divine, and gold is certainly a treasure that comes from far away. Yes, it may seem surprising, but our jewelry was created from stardust. This extraterrestrial material then made its way to us via meteorites. And as a result, gold found its way into our soil and rivers. This very rare metal has superpowers, which make it useful in many different ways. Not only is it resistant, but also malleable, meaning that it can be hammered, stretched, or curved into all sorts of shapes. In China, 5,000 years ago, goldsmiths were highly skilled with their hands. They were already using several techniques to shape the gold and create amazing jewelry, ornaments, and objects. Hammering, for example, is among the oldest methods we've discovered. It consists of beating and flattening a sheet of gold onto a shape to create a design in low relief. Talented artisans would then use a chasing tool to create patterns on the objects. Another amazing property of gold is that it becomes liquid when it is heated to 1,000 degrees Celsius, a temperature easily achieved with fire. Goldsmiths then poured molten gold into molds. Once cooled, it hardened to create cast pieces. In the 14th century, artisans were able to make fabulous hair ornaments, like this one, by stretching gold into very fine threads, which could be less than a millimeter thick. Gold is so easy to bend and twist that it is perfect for the filigree technique. Can you see the tiny beads on this hairpin? When gold is turned into small granules through an ancient technique called granulation, it can be used to decorate an object. Goldsmiths certainly needed a lot of patience. Hammering and chasing, casting, wire and filigree, or granulation. These traditional techniques, among others, have been used for hundreds of years. They have been passed on from masters to apprentices over the centuries. Thanks to these precious techniques, many treasures are still being made today.
Hello everyone, and welcome to your second lesson about gold. The first recorded discovery of gold was to have been found on the banks of Witwatersrand by Jan Gerard Bankies in June 1886, a defining moment in South African history. Gold, more so than diamonds, revolutionized South Africa from an agricultural society to become the largest gold producer in the world. Later, more gold mines were discovered further south and east of South Africa, extending for miles. In South Africa, we would say kilometers, underground, resulting in an endless treasure of gold. Gold mining very quickly became the largest and most important part of the South African economy. Witwatersrand, also called the Rand, is a ridge of gold-bearing rock mostly in the Gauteng province of South Africa. Its name means Ridge of White Waters. The highland, which forms the watershed between the Vaal and Limpopo rivers, is about 100 kilometers long and 37 kilometers wide. Its average elevation is about 1,700 meters above sea level. Its rich gold deposits, occurring in conglomerate rocks, beds known as reefs, were discovered in 1886. A heavy in-migration of miners followed, and the city of Johannesburg grew near the center of Witwatersrand. The focus was no longer just diamonds. Everyone wanted a piece of gold. Why was the Rand such a gold success? On the 14th of September 1886, the first large mining company on the reef, the Witwatersrand Gold Mining Company, was formed. The reef extended not only to the east and west, but also downwards with persisting values of ore. There were numerous reasons that gold mining was deemed easier in this area. Some of these reasons were the Rand's climatic conditions, meaning that the weather was conducive for mining. The ore was rich and located close to the surface. This made initial operations highly profitable and enabled further in-depth exploration of the reef to be self-financing. So what this means is, in the beginning, the gold was closer to the surface, so it was easier for the miners to find it. Then with the money they made from that gold, they were able to do further in-depth exploration. They were able to finance it themselves in order to find more gold. Mine personnel and technical expertise were available from the Kimberley diamond mines, as well as the gold fields of Australia and North America. So we already had people in the country who were doing the mining of diamonds, and so they could use that knowledge to help them with the mining of gold. South Africa also had the availability of unskilled labor. The next couple of slides are going to give you a brief explanation on how gold is mined in South Africa. Please take the time to pause each slide, allowing you to read the information provided. For assessment purposes, you will not need to discuss the gold mining cycle in great detail, but you should know what the 12 steps are and have an understanding of what it means. So you need to look at each slide, pause the video, read the information, and make your notes as you go along. Otherwise, go through each slide now, and then later when you re-watch the video, make your notes from the gold mining life cycle. Have you ever heard of the South African Kruger Rand? Have you ever been in a shopping center and seen these shops called Skoin that sell the Kruger Rand? Watch the next two videos to find out just how important gold is to the South African economy.
The South African gold Krugerrand remains one of the most important bullion coins of the last 50 years. Struck by the South African Mint, the 1-ounce gold Krugerrand is considered the first modern gold coin for the everyday buyer. The South African gold Krugerrand bears no denomination. The 1-ounce gold coin is marked only with its weight in gold, yet it is so well known that it is easily recognized around the world. Composed by Otto Schultz, the obverse of the coin bears a portrait of Paul Kruger, the former South African president and war figure, while the reverse brings to life a galloping springbok, South Africa's national animal. So important is the South African gold Krugerrand that the modern history of gold cannot be told without it. It is considered the original modern bullion coin, first issued by the South African Mint in 1967 and accounting for 90% of the global gold coin market by 1980. As a tangible form of wealth recognized around the world, the South African gold Krugerrand offers an exceptional level of financial liquidity and portability. In a world of changing financial markets, the South African gold Krugerrand represents a degree of consistency. The year of issue is varied. Denomination is not applicable. Condition, brilliant uncirculated. Metal content, 1 troy ounce, 0.916722 karat gold. Mint mark not shown, but South African Mint. Diameter 32.77 millimeter. Thickness 2.84 millimeter. Obverse designer, Otto Schultz. Reverse designer, Coert Steinberg.
Johannesburg is considered to be a rather large city. But did you know that Johannesburg is only a third of the size of New York? So we would have to take the whole of Joburg and times it by 3 to understand the size of New York City in America. Johannesburg is actually one of the youngest of the world's major cities, and it was only founded in 1886 following the discovery of gold. The city was initially part of the Transvaal, an independent Afrikaner or Boer republic that later became one of the 4 provinces of South Africa. In the old days, we only had 4 provinces. Today, the city is part of Gauteng, a Sotho word meaning place of gold, which is one of the 9 provinces of South Africa. Johannesburg is situated on the Highveld, the broad grassy plateau that sweeps across the South African interior. The city owes its location to the presence of a precious resource, gold. The city grew on the edge of the Witwatersrand main reef. Most of the gold mines in the city ceased operation in the 1970s. But in its day, the Witwatersrand gold industry accounted for more than 40% of the world's annual gold production. So let's just recap quickly. This large bustling city that we all know about only started in 1886 when gold was discovered by Australian gold prospector George Harrison. So you can just imagine, everyone's in Kimberley looking for diamonds, and suddenly, a little bit further up, they struck gold. So soon tents and wagons appeared, because remember back then they didn't have cars. And then these tents were replaced by wood and iron structures, and again later replaced by brick buildings. So this became like a permanent site. And so a town was demarcated and a large bustling market square. Buildings got taller and taller, and today the city boasts one of the tallest buildings in Africa, the 50-story Carlton Centre, which was built in 1973. The gold rush, just like the diamond rush, saw prospectors from around the world trek up to Witwatersrand. Gold was the backbone of Johannesburg's rapid growth. In time, industries were established, and more people came seeking jobs and a slice of its wealth.
I'm about to go down one of the deepest gold mines in the world on the West Rand, just outside Carletonville. It's called Tautuna, which in Setswana means Great Lion, and it's 3.9 kilometers, nearly 4 kilometers deep.
You know, so much of my life has been spent dealing with migrant workers and miners. They're my friends, the people I dance, sing and play with. I've written songs about mines, and yet strangely, this will be my first experience ever of actually descending into a mine.
Wow. You're traveling at 6 meters per second. There are 3 shafts. We're going down the first shaft, then we're going to go a long ways, then down the second, and then down the third. You experience your ears blocking now. Where's... Where are we now exactly?
We're at 120.57, which is a reef intersection. So this is at the entrance into the stope.
How many meters down are we now?
3,200, 3,300.
3,300 meters.
Mora. John. Oh. Now, Johnny, if you look in there, see that's the reef. That's the gold we're mining. It sits in there. That's blackish color with the pebbles on it. That's the reef band.
Yeah, Bonfitch. It's a place of immense intensity and immense focus. It's very hot. It's cramped.
Only a few artists have ever been drawn to the deep gut of the mines. Yet the world down here has shaped some extraordinary and varied art. And now I understand why. It is an extreme environment, as far from nature as you would ever hope to be. The artists who have shown us these deep spaces act almost as reporters, allowing us glimpses into dark, convoluted tunnels, the snaking locomotives and cocoa pans that carry people and rock backwards and forwards, the intensity of the cramped spaces, the minimal light, imminent danger, and excessive heat.
The fascinating thing for me is the seam of gold is 30 centimeters long. And this whole journey has been like following a golden thread all the way. We don't know where it's leading us. And we have geologists and other people to try and predict and help us follow that thread. And that golden thread weaves through the lives of all of these people. Right now, there are 2,500 people at this level working to make sure that that thread is followed and dominated. Wow, it's so bright out here. That sky is so blue. That's an African sky.
African sky blue, your children wait for the dawn.
Shosholoza began as a folk song for the gold and diamond miners, traveling back and forth between Zimbabwe and South Africa. The word Shosholoza is a combination of both Ndebele, which comes from Zimbabwe, and Zulu, which we know comes from South Africa. The words meaning to push forward, endeavor, or strive. The sound of the word itself is symbolic of the steam engine trains that carried the miners through the mountains. It is said that the song helped to lessen the workload and to help create a rhythm to work to through the long and hard days. I hope that you enjoy the song.
Shosholoza, kulevuntabas, timelas, pumesala, Shosholoza, kulevuntabas, timelas, pumesala, when we are baleka, kulevuntabas. cholo zamama, dig, dig, digging in the sun. Men must work for me. Dig, dig, digging in the sun. Men must work for me. Dig, dig, digging in the sun. Men must work for me. Dig, dig, digging in the sun. Men must work for me. Doom, 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 South Africa, Shosholoza, Kulezuntabas, Timelas, Pumba, South Africa, Wenduyabaleka, Kulezuntabas, Timelas, Pumba, South Africa, Wenduyabaleka, Kulezuntabas, Timelas, Pumba, South Africa.
Working in the mines has always been a dangerous industry. One of the legacies of the mining industry in South Africa is the poor working conditions of many black South Africans. Remember, we discussed the compounds they lived in. We have discussed how they were restricted by movement. They were not provided with protective gear like we use today. Slowly, the conditions have improved, but even in today's times, mining remains a problem. Compared to other countries, South African mines are composed of ore bodies, which are formed from all minerals and waste rocks. This makes our mines different. It has its benefits in that it allows mining companies to dig deeper than anywhere else in the world. Remember, South Africa has 2 of the deepest mines in the world. The deepest one going 4 kilometers below the Earth's surface. On the other hand, the mining area becomes unbearably hot and narrow, because obviously when they start digging the mine, they can't make the tunnel very, very wide. And it gets up to about 60 degrees Celsius in there. That's really, really hot. Another problem with mining in the country is the silica dust, which can cause silicosis, a lethal lung disease. Machines cannot be used in the depths of the mining caves, which means human labor is the only option for now. So let's just recap. Digging mines deep underground is dangerous and must be done carefully. The area to be dug is surveyed by skilled people, and digging is done by specialized machinery. South Africa's gold mines are the deepest in the world, some going as deep as 3.9 and 4 kilometers below the surface. It is so deep down there that it gets extremely hot sometimes up to 60 degrees Celsius. The mines need to be ventilated and air conditioned to try and keep the miners safe. There can be harmful gases released in the rocks, as well as by explosives used to break the rocks up. In the tunnels, there's always the danger of a tunnel collapsing. The rock above the tunnels is heavy and puts immense pressure on the roof of the tunnel. Deep underground, the floors of the mines would often be covered in stagnant water. This means it's water that's not moving, it's just lying there. If water becomes stagnant, it can carry disease, and this also creates a danger of slipping. The using of explosives, such as dynamite, presented multiple dangers. Miners could be caught in the explosion, rocks could collapse unexpectedly, crushing people or blocking tunnels. The dust left in the air was breathed in and caused lung damage and diseases such as silicosis. Also, with the miners working in such close quarters, with such little space and with little to no fresh air, a disease called tuberculosis, which most of us in South Africa know as TB, spread quickly. The Rand Lords and the formation of the Chamber of Mines. Starting a gold mine required a large amount of money. You needed money so that you could purchase a land claim, avoid to keep up with the development of new technology needed to mine deeper and deeper, be able to buy the specialized machinery, and hire skilled workers from around the world. There were very few individuals who had enough money to pay for all of this on their own. Cecil John Rhodes and Barney Bonato had money from the diamond mines in Kimberley. Alfred Bate was another diamond mine owner who had made a lot of money, and so these three gentlemen formed a partnership and opened gold mining companies together. They became known as the Rand Lords. Strangely enough, they were called the Rand Lords because the gold came from Witwatersrand. And that's also how we got the name of our currency, the South African Rand. Soon other wealthy investors from overseas joined in, and other mining companies were formed along the Witwatersrand gold belt. The Rand Lords had a big task. They had to carefully decide where to open mines, what to spend the money on, and how to operate these mines to ensure that they made a profit. This still happens today. On the 5th of October, 1889, the mine owners joined together and formed an association called the Chamber of Mines. Today, it is known as the Minerals Council of South Africa. The association aimed to protect mine owners' interests and promote favorable legislation, meaning that the laws would benefit them. They also aimed to exchange information on mining and mining practices, the different methods of mining, with private and public organizations in South Africa and other countries. They worked together to find solutions to problems such as sourcing labor, minimizing labor costs, getting the government to pass laws that would be in their favor, laws that they would benefit from.
Gumboot dance started in the mines in Johannesburg back in the 1950s, where the migrant laborers met to work. Obviously, all of them were coming from different southern parts of Africa, from different cultural backgrounds, speaking different languages, and they then needed to come up with a means of expressing themselves, not just amongst each other, but also against the system that was oppressing them. So this language or this dance style then started as a means of them sometimes warning each other that, hey, watch out, he is coming, but also then grew into this creative outlet and a means of them just exchanging the energy, the different cultures, and this new language was then born.
It is part of our culture. The rhythm of gumboots has got into our blood, I suppose you could say. In 2005, when we launched and registered the Shosholoza brand, we didn't realize how far it would go, and where it's gone into Africa and where it's gone around the world, and just the meaning behind that, the movement of the arms of a steam train, that movement of the wheels, you know, as the arms push the wheels. There was the dance that the guys were doing on the mines and singing the Shosholoza song. But that's become like the culture of this Neptune boot manufacturing plant, where it's gone under our skin.
With Gumboot dance being this vibrant, energetic dance form, then you can't help but want to know more about it. So they started talking more about it, they started recreating it, they started developing it further. And obviously the world then caught up with this vibe that is now happening in Southern Africa. And Gumboot dance then really became this new language that everyone all over the world was just fascinated by. Walking into Neptune's factory was an extraordinary experience for me, just to be able to see these PVC pellets being molded into boots, and also seeing the different machines that are used to manufacture these extraordinary boots. And obviously some of them now have extra protection for the metatarsal, and also then to kind of look at that and see how, in the same way gum boots were created back in the days as a means of wanting to protect the feet, there has been that careful attention to adding those extra features in making sure that the laborers are extra protected.
We've seen that really important, especially in today's age where, 20, 30, 40 years ago, no one really cared about the safety of people. But today, with more and more people in the occupational environment and more people being injured, there's a bigger need. And so we're really enjoying the importance of finding that space where we can help people to protect their feet. Our focus has gone from just making gumboots to actually helping people stay safe and keep safe, and it's become part of our passion now, is about providing a product that is comfortable, easy to wear, durable, has great perceived value, and protects a person's feet.
I think one of the most common reactions that we get from especially foreign people when they watch gumboot dance, they're just mind blown by the complexity and the beauty of the rhythms, and also the energy that is involved in gumboot dance. The beauty or the complexity of all these rhythms just meeting together then combines and presents what we would regard as the beauty or the pulse of Africa, which some have spoken about as, Africa being the heartbeat of the world. It has now become this beautiful celebratory story that really embraces our history and speaks of who we are in the context of our past, our present, and who we can also be in the future as well. And it really is a dance that we can all access to celebrate ourselves, our history, and our country and our cultures. It's now accessible to all of us, and I'm grateful as a performing artist to those pioneers who were part of that. But I'm also eager to take it further, to get a lot more people involved, and to collaborate with many other artists, and to keep sharing our collective story as South Africans.
So far, you've covered quite a lot of information about the mineral revolution. So let's just go back a bit. The mineral revolution in South Africa started with the discovery of diamonds in Kimberley and intensified with the discovery of deep-level gold on the Witwatersrand. By the time that gold was discovered, African kingdoms had lost their independence. During the gold mining revolution, patterns of land and labor were established and continued into the 20th century. The mineral revolution brought about the changing of balance of power in South Africa due to diamond mining, gold mining, and the foundations of racial segregation by Britain, who incorporated, meaning introduced, labor control and land expansionism. The discovery of diamonds and gold changed the South African economy significantly. European investments flowed in. International banks and private lenders increased cash and credit available to local farmers, miners, and prospectors, and they in turn placed growing demands for land and labor on the local African populations. South Africa was drawn into the international economy through its exports, primarily, meaning mainly, diamonds and gold, and through its own increasing demand for a variety of agricultural imports. The cycle of economic growth was stimulated by the continual expansion of the mining industry, and with newfound wealth, consumer demand fueled higher levels of trade. It all sounds great in theory. I mean, South Africa is now on the map. We are now part of the international economic cycle. But let's look at the reality of the mineral revolution. Before the mineral revolution, South Africa was experiencing a financial depression at the time. This means that the country didn't have any money. The majority of its people, those indigenous to the land, were actively occupied with agricultural and pastoral farming. So they were farming for survival. They had accepted the struggle for survival, but were inhibited, meaning they were limited, by their lack of technical knowledge and resistance to innovation. This means that they resisted new methods, and they didn't like change. Neither were their white counterparts spared the toil. So even those who had moved to South Africa back then were also experiencing the hardships of the land. Thanks to the merino sheep, which had been introduced in the Southeast Cape by the 1820 settlers, wool was the only exportable item. The country was thought to have no significant minerals or metals. The whites who went to seek their fortunes at the diamond diggings came from the British colonies and Boer republics of South Africa, or from Britain, Australia, the USA, and other countries. Many arrived as penniless diggers, hoping to strike it rich. This means that they left their own countries, came to South Africa, but they were very poor or had very little. So they might have used all their savings just to cross the ocean to get to South Africa. Others came with a little capital, meaning that some did come to the country with a bit of money. And then they set up businesses as traders, diamond buyers, or barkeepers. Although one may see the growth and expansion of industries as a positive thing, South Africa now had the attention of the world, and everyone wanted a part of its wealth. The effects of the mineral revolution were vast and long-lasting. These effects may be divided into the following categories: political, social, economic, and environmental effects. Let us briefly look at each of these categories to understand the full impact of the mineral revolution on South African history. The political effects. It influenced the British ambitions, meaning their desire to govern or control the interior parts of South Africa. Remember, in the beginning, their colonies were along the coast, but now all of a sudden there was an interest in the middle of South Africa. This resulted into incorporation of diamond fields at Kimberley by the British, so that they could have control of the mining industry. It created enmity, meaning it created a dislike between the British and the Boers. The Boers lost their land to the British, which is why they had moved more inland. Now the British were taking over that land too. Strangely enough, it also influenced the introduction of apartheid, meaning segregation, to live apart. The policy that separated the people into races. Remember the mining compounds and the different rules and regulations according to the color of your skin? It led to the imbalance of power between the whites and the blacks. Africans totally lost their independence. Although the whites were the minority, meaning there were less white people, they managed to gain control of South Africa through different laws. The mining revolution also marked the formation of the Federation of South Africa by the British in 1877. This made South Africa one country under the rule of the British, even though the Boers were against it. This resulted in some very unhappy people. The social effects of the mining revolution. There was cultural transformation due to cultural contacts. The number of white settlers increased, and this affected the natives' culture. The native cultures were being exposed to more European or westernized ways of doing things. And so this would naturally start to change the culture of the country. There was also an increase of racial segregation due to new laws and legislations. People being told where they can live, who to live with when working on the mines, etc. The Transvaal was changed from being agricultural and pastoral, so the Transvaal used to be a farming community and suddenly became a highly industrialized society, hence the birth of the city of Johannesburg. There was population growth due to immigration. People from nearby places like Mozambique and Zimbabwe moved to South Africa. There was the spread of diseases, such as the lung disease and the spread of tuberculosis due to the mining conditions. This would have led in a lot of loss of life. There was also family separation. Labor migration separated families in various places, for example, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Angola. You see, the father of the family would move to South Africa, leaving his family in his home country. The economic effects. It reconstructed the economy of South Africa. In the beginning, South Africa was agricultural. All of a sudden, it was industrial and commercial. It facilitated the development of a transport system, such as the railway link from Natal and Cape Town all the way through to the borders of the Transvaal. Remember, that's where the song Shoshaloza comes from, the train carrying them across the country. It led to the transformation of Kimberley into an important mining and commercial center with a large population. Other towns like Johannesburg also grew. The mining industry offered employment opportunities. Capital obtained allowed for further investments that offered more jobs, and so the cycle continued. The export trade also grew. Harbours like Cape Town were used for export and became very, very busy. The rise of the South African Industrial Revolution was also a result of the Mineral Revolution. Different industries emerged because they were needed, such as food processing, iron and steel industries. It also led to the expansion of agriculture because more food was needed to feed the industrial workers and miners, and so farmers needed to farm more food for commercial purposes and not just for survival. Unfortunately, the whites took more land for mining and agricultural activities, leaving the Africans landless. They did this through different laws and legislations. There was also the emergence of large mining companies, and one that we did learn about, the De Beer Consolidated Mines, which was started under Cecil John Rhodes. Lastly, we look at environmental effects. And this is one where the earth will struggle to recover. There was loss of biodiversity. Mining activities destroyed landscapes and forests, leading to loss of wildlife. Water pollution by mining also killed aquatic organisms. For example, there's the disappearance of water weeds that used to be found in Kimberley since the 1860s, and this was due to the pollution by chemicals from mining. We also have what is known as deforestation. Large stretches of land had been cleared to allow mining processes. Mining in South Africa required large areas that were cleared, leading to the loss of forests throughout the areas where minerals were extracted, hence leaving the land bare. Without forests, we have no animals. Environmental pollution. Land, water, and air were polluted by wastes from mines and industries. Chemicals, fumes, and solid particles polluted the environment. For instance, in Transvaal, the dumping of rotten industrial materials in water canals led to the increase of polluted water. We have also watched documentaries where we can see the long-lasting effect of gold mining in the Transvaal area. Land degradation. Harmful materials like chemicals from mines dumped into land destroyed its quality. The reality is that the environmental management systems and restoration procedures were not in place. Not like we have today, where some companies are trying to make a difference. Let's just do a recap quickly, go over a few things. The Mineral Revolution brought about some important economic changes in South Africa. You learnt about the Industrial Revolution in Britain. Well, the Mineral Revolution led to South Africa having their own Industrial Revolution. Towns and cities grew, factories were built to make the needed machinery and building materials. Workshops and small businesses grew to make furniture, clothing, sell food, and provide whatever the people needed. Railways and roads were built to transport people and goods across the country. The economy was no longer just reliant on farming, but on mining and industry too. With the mining industry growing the way it did, there was a shifting in the balance of power. Now remember, we had the Dutch settlers who became the Boers, and we had the British settlers. We also had African tribes. But now all of a sudden South Africa had value, and Britain wanted to be in control. They took over the diamond fields, which we had learnt about previously, and they defeated the African kingdoms. They also fought a war against the Boer republics. This was from 1899 to 1902. It is known as the Boer War in South Africa, and it's known as the Great South African War if you go overseas. The British won. And so by 1902, the whole of South Africa was under British control. In 1910, they united all the colonies to form one country, and they called the country the Union of South Africa. The British wanted to maintain political power, and so only white people could vote. They also wanted to maintain economic power, and so they introduced the 1913 Land Act, putting most of the land under white control. With the Mineral Revolution, the Industrial Revolution of South Africa, and the shifting of power, we had different political movements. In 1902, we had the formation of the political party, the African Political Organization. In 1903, we had the formation of the Transvaal Indian Congress. And in 1912, we had the South African Native National Congress, which later would be called the ANC. In grade 8, you don't really need to know all the details about these parties, but at least now you have an understanding when they were formed. And you will definitely go into more detail of this when you do apartheid in grade 9.
Bambatha was born in 1860 and ruled the Amazondi clan of the Zulu people. In 1905, the British colonialists introduced a £1 tax to force Zulus to work on their farms. Bambatha refused to pay, so in 1906 British police were sent to collect the money. Bambatha killed them and launched a series of successful guerrilla attacks against the British, using the Nkandala forest as a base. In retaliation, the British sent a force armed with machine guns and cannons to battle it out at the Mermaid Gorge. 4,000 Zulus were killed, 7,000 imprisoned, and 4,000 whipped. Bambatha's head was cut off, but mysterious rumours circulated that he had escaped. During the conflict, Mahatma Gandhi was a medic for the British Army. Gandhi said, "This is no war, but a manhunt." 100 years later, DNA taken from a lock-up head did not prove Bambatha died in battle, and many believe he lived until 1920 in neighbouring Mozambique. Never forget Bambatha the Rebel, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Manic Minutes.
I do not think that I should apologize.
Truth is never illustrated through the use of violence. This is one of the guiding principles that sits at the core of the illuminated thinking created by the man known to the world as Mahatma, the Great Soul, moral and spiritual teacher, founding father of India. against the violation of human rights, and even when provoked, he would refuse to denounce his aggressors, ever more convinced that non-violence is the only way to combat violence itself. On the basis of his traumatic experiences in South Africa, Gandhi developed the concept of satyagraha, that literally means adhering unflinchingly to the truth. As Gandhi saw it, physical force is only used by weak people. Real strength resides in a person's capacity to express their ideals. On the 11th of September 1906, Gandhi publicly proclaimed his philosophy for the first time. Public support was virtually universal. One must never oppose arrest. One must never oppose the law. One must never respond to violence with violence, but one must strive to affirm vigorously the will of the people and uphold religious freedom.
Gandhi's dream of developing a community of satyagrahis, living a new and simple life in rural surroundings, took final shape on a farm near Johannesburg, named after Tolstoy. In October 1913, hundreds of Indians, men and women with children in their arms, thronged Newcastle to march to Transvaal as a protest against the £3 tax levied on their freedom. They had great faith in their leader, who shared their daily hardships, nursed the sick, and fed the hungry. The soldiers of Satyagraha offered prayers and began the epic march in the name of God. Gandhi was arrested 3 times in 4 days, but the march continued, proclaiming the grim tenacity and the stern determination of the marchers. On the triumphant end of the Satyagraha struggle, Gandhi observed, "Satyagraha is a priceless weapon, and those who wield it are strangers to disappointment or defeat."
And that concludes your crash course in the Mineral Revolution. Please remember that to prepare for your tests and final examinations, you need to go through each lesson again. I recommend that you read through your textbook pages again. Do some of the activities and look at the sources and practice. Go through your work and remember to ask for any form of assistance should you not understand something or just need more clarification.